Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's the return of the movie!
And hello and welcome everyone to the Return of the Movie, the podcast where we talk about sequels, reboots, and franchises. I'm Ben.
I'm Alex.
And I'm Matt.
All right, everyone, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. If you're on YouTube, it really helps us out. And if you're on audio, follow us and stick around because we have a lot of very interesting conversations from our past catalog, and that will be happening in the future. So keep that in mind. We also have a more bite-sized review show on our YouTube channel that is Full Stop Reviews, run by Matt over here. And in addition to that, I have two special announcements. First, I'm going to lead with the happy one. First special announcement is this upcoming Wednesday, the 27th, we are doing a special Call of Cthulhu tabletop RPG live stream based in the universe of Holloween. So it will be Michael Myers, maybe. I don't know. There's some debate about if we are allowed to use that name on that stream, but we'll figure out what that looks like.
Please don't sue us,
Mikey will make an appearance.
Mikey Myers will... No, don't spoil it. Oh, I can't use that now.
Wait, you were actually going to use that?
Yeah, I was totally considering it. I'm bleeping that.
I thought that was just a joke.
It was a joke, but like we were in the production meeting for it, and we were all like, "Hey, we should do it." And then yeah, here we are. So that's where that is. So
Just
join in
leave
for
it.
that. It's gonna be some goofy goodness, and it's also just gonna be a lot of fun because it's gonna be a really fun stream. I can promise you that. And the second but sadder news. This is the last episode of the Return of the Movie for the first season. We've had a very long run on this first one, and we are planning on coming back sometime in 2022 with a little bit more of a focused sort of parameters for how we do this podcast. So we're not 100% sure what that looks like, but we will be back.
We will at
And-
least be definitely reviewing Halloween next year. So at the very least.
At the very least, we will be doing that. So stick around. And with that, Alex, why don't you take us away?
All right, guys. Today we are following Halloween Kills, which starts immediately where Halloween 2018 left off. An homage to Halloween 2 while completely just like disregarding that movie. We follow Michael Myers, a Midwest boomer with zero respect for first responders, as he discovers new, exciting ways to murder people. A movie that can't tell if it wants to be a cautionary tale against mob mentality or simply a brutal bloodbath, there is one thing that the movie says for sure. People are generally dumb and generally deserve to die. And maybe Michael is like... totally right. I'm not sure about what, but like he's right.
Oh God. Okay. Matt, who's in this thing?
Directed by David Gordon Green and coming from a script, if you can call it that, from David Gordon Green and Danny McBride. We have Jamie Lee Curtis, Judy Greer, Andy Matichak, Will Patton, Anthony Michael Hall, Nancy Stevens reprising her role from the original 1978 movie, Kyle Richards reprising her role from the original 1978 movie, Nick Castle reprising his role from the original 1978 movie, and James Jude Courtney. I have a couple of fun facts for this one. The first one is that Halloween Ends was technically supposed to take place the same night as 2018 and Halloween Kills, but during COVID, they rewrote the script and then decided to set it a few years later.
Oh.
So there's going to be a time skip between this one and the next one, which is why the ending is kind of weird, because the ending was shot a certain way, but then they decided to do the time skip, and so they cut a bunch of stuff out, apparently.
They're also
and
going to be...
apparently, when the Blu-ray comes out, they're going to be including a new ending on it.
Oh, geez. Okay. Alex, you had something to add?
Yeah, the next movie is going to address COVID-19.
Oh, Jesus
What?
Christ.
We don't want that.
Seriously?
Why?
That's depressing. No.
I'm running a horror game next week for this channel, and we all explicitly went, you know what we don't want in our 2021 setting? COVID.
It's exploitive.
It's also like,
okay.
is Michael Myers really the franchise that needs to be, like, politicized in any way?
I mean,
No.
He's wearing a mask.
No, that's what the Purge is for. I mean, like, there are...
Michael Myers first to get his vaccine, guys. Just saying.
Oh, man. I mean, I don't even want to go down that rabbit hole. I don't even want to go down that rabbit hole.
How did we end up here? Okay, well,
I have two more.
yes, let's get us off this topic, please.
I don't even know how to get back to the main conversation after that.
Second
You
front
can
back.
do it.
Let's
I
go. We're
believe
gonna
in you.
Bob
ignore
Odenkirk.
COVID.
Bob Odenkirk makes a quick appearance in this movie. They are looking through yearbook photos of victims from the original 1978 movie, and you know the guy that gets like nailed to the wall in
Yeah.
the original one. Okay, so the yearbook picture they find of him was actually Bob Odenkirk when he was younger. They couldn't find one of the original actor, but they found one of Bob Odenkirk.
Oh, that's
Oh.
funny.
I like that.
Busta Rhymes was almost in this movie. Apparently, the producers wanted to bring him in, and then it fell through for whatever reason.
This, I'm not gonna lie, this movie more than the previous one, because I made it very known that I did not like 2018 in the least. But this movie felt a lot more like an homage, maybe not a well done homage, but it felt more like an homage to previous installments and pieces that are no longer canon.
Oh, it definitely ate a whole bunch of member berries.
Oh yeah, it
for
was
sure. The masks
one of the
from Halloween
flashbacks-
3, obviously. Which
One
I
of the flashbacks
loved
even
that.
includes footage.
Yeah, I was gonna say the masks were so awesome. The second that I
That was a
realized
great
what
touch.
those were, I was like, "That's a fucking deep cut."
It's
Not
great.
many people are gonna know that that's where that's from.
Those masks were actually in 2018 as well. There's like kids running around in the background with them.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the same kids.
I still love it though. That's like,
And we get dead kids from those masks.
we did get dead kids from those masks. Oh, the bloody skull mask was so satisfying to see as someone who's seen 3. There was something very nice about
So not
that.
only is it Halloween 3 that's anti-child, it's this one too.
Oh, yes. I mean, arguably all the Halloween movies are kind of anti-children. He does murder children in almost all of them. Maybe not 4.
Yeah.
He deliberately goes out of his way to not murder children in 2.
Oh, interesting.
Because there's a scene where he walks by like a birthing ward and just walks past it. When it's in
Oh.
the hospital, yeah.
I didn't realize that. Is there a soul under that dead white mask?
No, I'd more argue that he had a more singular objective in 2.
Okay, that's
Yes.
fair. So, speaking... Go ahead, Alex, before I move on.
I just I was like, oh, let me see if I can find any behind the scene facts. And I pulled up Screen Rant, which is not the best website. And they're like, fun facts about Halloween Kills. Number 2 out of 10. The writers and director wanted the movie to have a message. Well, I sure hope so.
Oh, gosh.
You guys,
Yeah,
we're gonna do
so-
something out there and different for this movie. It's gonna have a message. Like, what does that
Rip
mean?
off the
Who
plot of
wrote
Halloween
this?
4.
Yeah, usually when people... They want to...
Write a movie,
nev-
it usually has a message.
Yeah,
Good job.
I'm never not baffled by Hollywood's inability to use themes. And... Oh my god, they tried with this.
You know,
Kind
it
of.
felt like they were so close to getting it right thematically, but so far at the same time.
There was no pattern to it. There was no thought with it. They just kind of had this mob mentality thing in here, which I guess let's talk about that. So odds are, if you're watching this, this is a very spoiler-heavy podcast. If you've watched this, we're assuming that you've seen the movie. So the most glaring thing for me here was the mob mentality message that they were trying to do with this. Of just, because my whole thing is like, and I said this earlier, I blinked and I missed it in the hospital. Like, I looked away from my Peacock, not sponsored by Peacock. I looked away from my stream for like a hot second, turned back, and then suddenly there's an angry mob trying to kill this lone dude in a hospital.
Who's like 2 full feet shorter than
he's
the
like
person they want to kill.
He's kind of pudgy.
He talks.
He's like having trouble running away. Like, very clearly not, as the guy said, an apex predator. And this whole subplot in the movie just kind of like, I was doing really good with this movie until we hit this subplot. This is where it started to get away from me hard.
Yeah. Here's my other thing is that, God bless, I love Judy Greer. And her character is like, oh my God, this innocent man. And I'm like, he was in like an asylum for the criminally insane. So I don't know that he's too innocent. Like, we don't really know his background. It seems likely that he killed people or raped people. You know, so I don't know how innocent he is. Is he guilty of being Michael Myers? No. Is he a innocent little angel? Also not that.
Probably
That scene
not.
was so weird. She's like, come on, I can help you. And like, again, God bless, she's amazing.
Oh,
I
maybe it was
believe
the
her.
wrong
Like,
figure of
she's
speech.
gonna win. And then the filming afterwards where she's just like, all the people around, she's like, oh my God, guys, no.
Stop. Don't do it.
Stop it.
No,
And she's
stop.
looking at Tommy and she's
No,
like,
no.
Tommy, stop them. And he's like, oh no, that's not him. And she's like, yeah.
That whole sequence was,
And then he goes out onto the
Ridiculously stupid.
ledge of the building, and it seems like he could walk around the building, and then he chooses
but-
instead to just immediately jump off.
yeah, he still had an escape. The people on the ground weren't trying to go after him. It was, the whole exchange was just weird. Every single part of it, from the fact that it was a blink and you miss it type setup to how it ends, and also like they did not need to, like, when he fell, he opened up like a goddamn pumpkin. Like,
That was it was really gross.
yeah,
This movie is
It's
great.
bad.
that was a lot. Definitely not my favorite
No.
as far as all of that is concerned. I think
And then they're like,
that's the entire.
we're the monsters now. I'm like, this is
Good job.
Alrighty.
You matched a theme that
It
the
was-
Twilight Zone got right in a 20-minute episode
It was
70 years ago.
trying to like hand fist it in, and that was also like very much like the second that they had that like act, I think that was like the act 2 climax or something. The second that they had that done, they were just like, and we are done with thematic messaging now we just go back to slasher film.
it's like back to our regularly scheduled programming. Do do
Yeah,
do 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 do.
Well,
the whole thing was just hand fisted in there.
It was.
I mean, I'll say this. I'll say this. Horror, like sci-fi, is a great genre for having messages in there because you can use metaphors in ways that normal storytelling can't.
Yes.
for sure.
Black Christmas, because we were just talking about that in the lead up to this. The original Black Christmas, one of the reasons why that movie is so great is because there's the whole subtext of nobody taking the women in the sorority house seriously until their boyfriends or fathers get involved.
Yeah.
And then it goes deeper than that, but it's just stuff like that, you know? Like Texas Chainsaw Massacre is a satire on the nuclear American family. And it's not like overt, but it's there throughout the whole thing. And the whole thing with the theme is that the ending has to tie in and make it relevant for some reason. You
Yes.
can't just drop it 20 minutes before the movie ends.
And that is my whole thing with thematic pieces controlling idea. And we are going to be doing a much more deeper video on the channel soon, within like the next month or two on this, because we want to start expanding upon the things that we talk about on this podcast in a little bit more depth, so we can sort of use these terms and have some place that our audience that doesn't understand what controlling idea might be to actually go and figure that out. But the whole thing here is that it feels like someone read an instruction manual on themes and then just kind of gave it a passing glance and then left it, because they do bring the mob thing back in the end. And it feels like they're trying to use that as like oh yeah, we still use the mob thematic element
heroes
at the end.
in the end.
Yeah, there's no actual repercussions for their actions.
I don't think
And,
they're
like,
heroes in the end. They get murdered. They get killed.
I mean, they're
because of
morons.
what they did.
They're morons, but they
get
save
killed
the
because
one
of what
person.
they did, not, oh, they're in the way of Michael Myers. No, they're all there because they tried to kill
The
Michael,
amazing-
and then they're still hanging around, and so he kills them. So, and that's
The
the
amazing
reason
thing
they
about
die.
this movie is that, with the exception of maybe 2 to 3, with like the firefighters at the beginning, or like the couple who just happened to be living in that house, most of the people who die in this movie are people who go out of their way to die.
Which honestly made this movie feel kind of like a comedy to me.
Everybody in this movie is so fucking stupid. It was just hard to watch after a certain point. It's like the 3 of them, they know for a fact that Michael is in that house, so they go into the fucking house one by one.
Yeah, that was a problem.
Or you could the people in that car, the girl, her boyfriend, and
the
what's
old
his name,
lady.
Lonnie? No, before Judy Greer shows up
Okay,
at the house.
gotcha.
The girl, the boyfriend, and the dad. They know for a fact that there's other groups of people in that mob. All you have to do is call and wait for 5 minutes. Michael's not going anywhere.
Yeah,
How are there no cops at Michael Myers' house?
I mean, here's the thing. We can look at this thing and try to figure out the fucking logic behind it, but in reality, this movie was written by people that seem to be as smart as the characters that they put on screen.
Now,
So-
speaking of cops, I do have to say, the 70s flashback,
Oh,
amazing.
that was so good.
I was like, oh my god, this movie's going to be good, because this, stylistically, phenomenal.
The way
I
it was
loved the
shot,
writing
the way they were
for
all
it.
dressed, the way they talked.
The way it cut, like, it looked like John Carpenter. I really, really loved that. And I thought that whole plot being brought around, I thought that was great. Like, young Hawkins,
and
who
like,
I also love Thomas Mann. I
Didn't
think
he get run
he's
over by
a great
car in the
actor.
last one too?
Who got run over?
who, Michael Myers?
No, the cop that survived.
Oh, the cop that survived?
Because I remember him getting like his throat slashed open and then getting run over by a car.
It's
So
been-
that dude's durable too.
Yeah,
Props to him.
it's been months since I've seen that, but my big thing with that was like how nice it was to see Dr. Loomis.
That wasn't a deepfake. That was. They
Yeah, I
actually
know
got
that was
someone who
borrowed
looked like him.
footage.
I
No, it
know,
wasn't.
like,
What?
oh,
That was
it?
original footage. They found someone on set who was almost a dead ringer for Donald Pleasance, and then put him in the movie. That was not
What?
CGI. That was not old
What?
footage. Yeah, that was new footage with just a stunt double, basically.
It looks like they shot it on like film grain. That's the reason why I
Exactly.
thght it was borrowed.
No,
Any
that was
time that
originally
they-
shot footage.
I just have to say, I'm
I'm-
so impressed with how that looked. I loved how it was directed, how just everything about that scene I thought was immaculate, and I thought it was great, and it really brought around this plot. So I was like, oh, okay, this is
Yeah.
great. I love
And-
this. I love that he has this little secret now of like why he has to kill Michael Myers, and it explains why all the cops can't shoot for shit, I guess. So it fills in
I
that
mean-
little plot hole. Like, I was like, this is fantastic. And then it's all downhill from there.
Here's the thing. I feel like this movie was so damn close to being good if they just got rid of the fucking mob scene. If there was a mob subplot going around at the same time, a la
Halloween 4.
Halloween 4, which we're going to talk about in a bit, because there are some similarities between this and other movies. But that would have worked perfectly with this kind of slasher atmosphere and the idea of there being a manhunt for Michael Myers, and just sort of following him as he wreaks havoc on the town. Like, the best parts of this were when we were following Michael Myers and when we were following the characters that actually had a reason to want to kill him. Because anytime we were like following anyone else, literally like the woman that shoots herself in the face, that couple.
That was hilarious.
That was a great scene.
It almost seemed
was-
like Michael didn't even expect that to happen.
Yeah,
He just opened
some
the door
of
and he's like, oh, oops.
some of the random kills, like the older couple, that was great.
That was hardcore. Oh my God.
First of all, the kills were brutal, so bad. But
I
I
mean,
also loved this
it's
little
Halloween
like
kills.
vignette setup of the drone. He has this little joke about his wife's mom borrowed his CPAP machine. It smells like smoke, and she's like, "No, it's the house down the street." Like everything about that, I thought was it like gives a little levity, and then they get to be murdered brutally, and that murder doesn't need to be like tied to anything greater in the movie. They're just like there, and that happens. So I thought that was great. I thought like the gay couple living in his house, there's definitely something there about like, oh, this couple came in and they bought a house and they flipped it. It's all redone inside and gorgeous. I thought that was funny. Just
Big
talks about like
Mike
the housing
and
market
Little
right
Mike.
now.
John.
Little
For
John.
Big
John's
John
sake.
and Little John.
Big John and
That
Little
I
John.
thought that
He
was
even
great.
posed them in the way that they were the picture. Like, they're the only victims that he was even slightly respectful of their corpses.
It's like, could you imagine being Michael Myers coming home and being like, well, you can't live here, but I love what you did with the place.
Oh my God, this wallpaper looks amazing. Really brings
Oh
out
my
the
gosh, you
mid-century.
redid the windows.
You have an eye for the
Mid-century
color green, my
architecture.
friends.
It was so well done. I loved everything about it. I will say there are a couple plot points that we have to talk about that were just a little silly. Why were they keeping it a secret from Lori? That
Because they
plot
didn't
line
want
didn't go
her
anywhere.
to. They didn't want her to go after him.
Yeah, but she didn't either. She didn't do it anyway. She never left the hospital.
Okay, I actually kind of like that she didn't, within the context of her getting out of the bed and taking all the IVs out. Because anytime you see an IV in a movie, of course it's getting ripped out.
Yeah.
And then immediately she's like, no, I need to get back into bed.
Yeah.
That's the only time I think I've ever seen that in a movie. I just
Also,
like
the
that
idea
part of
that
it.
she ripped out her IVs and then stabs
And
herself
then overdosed on morphine.
with morphine. And I'm like, you know what
That's not how that
would have
works.
been less painful? To inject your IV drip already. That's what those are for. To administer medication. I was like, no one is a medical professional here.
Listen to doctors, people.
It was like unnecessarily metal the entire time.
Yeah.
I thought we were done with Rob Zombie.
Oh
I
my
mean,
God.
well,
The
there were-
music in this was also phenomenal. I really enjoyed. I don't
yes.
know. I don't remember enjoying it as much into the 2018 movie. Something about this one, the intro also was great. I love I just love it taking the like original movies kind of font and style, but something about the music was extra good in this movie, I felt.
Yeah, there were, and we talk about member berries and the whole nostalgia thing on this podcast a lot. But there are times when it is done right, when it does harken back to the property correctly in a way that doesn't feel forced. And the score and title cards in this were completely on point.
Well, for me, it was just the entire 70s, that late 70s film stock, the way they shot it, the way that Michael, in that flashback, he actually looked kind of like, I mean, tall, but like a lanky kind of wisp of a person, because he's just kind of like this Hulk throughout the rest of the franchise. And that's a Jason Voorhees trait that Michael later adopted that was never supposed to have been Michael.
Well, let's talk about the power creep in this, because it finally happened. Michael Myers is immortal in this version as well. Yay!
See,
Which
here's
makes it
my
hard to
thing.
explain.
I feel like they're just verbalizing something that is very fucking apparent in all of the other movies.
Yeah.
He like
I mean, yeah.
he survives in all the other movies. So clearly this is not just a man. He's more than a man. And I like what she says at the end about like every time people try to kill him, it only like makes him stronger. It's like, okay, yeah, that checks out. That seems to be what happens with all of the other movies. And everything about this would lead me to believe that he can kind of survive stuff.
That is... So here's the thing. I didn't hate that it happened. And I know that that might be a controversial take for some people. But because in reality, it has been kind of canon in all the other versions. You can borrow from the Thorn trilogy later on to imply that that's where a lot of his fucking craziness comes from. And in this one, it does kind of make sense that they would borrow some of those elements, because in reality, that's the thing that kind of made him really terrifying in the second movie, was the fact that he should have been dead by the time that movie started. And the fact that at the end of 2, they had to burn an entire hospital down on him. And then technically, if you count the Thorn trilogy's continuity, he fucking survives that as well. And the only person that gets kind of hurt is Loomis. And I just saw you make an 8 sign, Matt.
2 goes into 7 and 8 as well.
2 goes into 7 and 8.
There's a couple different continuities where he survives being blown up in a hospital.
Yeah, okay. So this man can... It makes sense that they go for it. And I'm not going to lie, because it opened up with him murdering all those firefighters, which, by the way, was a big controversy online. And then having it end the way that it did, with him getting up and taking everyone by surprise and just wiping out the entire mob. You knew that was going to happen based off of the opening scene.
I think the issue is that they just stretched the limits of disbelief like just enough.
Well,
because the entire point of the 2018 reboot,
yes,
was that it was this more grounded, as much as something like this can be grounded, take on the whole thing, where it's like, no, he wasn't Laurie's brother. He's just some crazy guy, and Laurie was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Because that's just kind of what the initial conception of that first movie was.
Yeah.
The twist about them being related didn't happen until 2. And he's just this killing machine, and he's evil personified in human form. But he's also human to an extent. And you see that in the 2018 one, where he's just as brutal, if not more so, in that one. But he ages. He doesn't look good for his age.
Yeah. Well, he should technically be in his 60s by the time that this movie happens.
I think it said he was
if I'm not
61. I feel like I read that somewhere.
Yeah. So with that in mind, though, like...
And with the time skip, he's going to be pushing 70 in the next one.
Well,
depending on how far into the future.
It's supposed to take place in 2022. The next one's supposed to be in 2022. This one is 65. In 2018.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, yeah, so he should be 65.
He's going to be like 65.
Here's the thing.
66.
Can you just start collecting Social Security paychecks at this point and just call it a day?
No, okay, I do have an important question for both of you, as far as analyzing horror is concerned. So, when we look at writing horror, most of us know that a monster is usually representative of something else.
Yeah.
Now, to say that Michael Myers is supposed to be representative of evil personified, I think is actually kind of a lazy take. Because I feel like there's a lot more to what makes him and other slashers scary than just being evil personified. Because I think that's at the heart kind of why people still like the power creeped version of Michael Myers. Well,
the thing... There's a couple different ways to read into Michael Myers. And the first one, and the one that got thrown out completely, is that the first victim was a member of his family. which is why the through line for everything until this reboot was him going after family members. So there's an aspect of that as well.
Yes.
There's an aspect of peaceful suburbia getting flipped upside down, because where it's like Friday the 13th, where you're in the middle of the woods somewhere, of course that's a creepy location.
Yeah.
Dreams, of course that's a creepy location. Even more so terrifying, alien in space, no one can hear you scream. This isolated location of the Overlook Hotel, where again it's a family member over there, but it's ghosts and like Jack Nicholson.
Yeah.
With this one, it's a little bit David Lynchian thematically, in the sense that it's the dark underside of suburbia.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of that to it, I'd say, as well.
But with Michael Myers, the dark underside of suburbia does. I mean, that makes sense within the lines of the story, but with the lines of the character, as far as, because I feel like the most thematic version has always been the family annihilator, or essentially which you can thematically look at as like sins of the family, or something that you inherit, and that's something that's very apparent in the Thorn trilogy. But throughout the,
or you can't outrun, as seen by 7 and 8.
Yeah. And I feel like the power creep kind of makes a lot more sense within the context of those, because when you have something that is supposed to be something that you just cannot escape from no matter what, and in the Thorn trilogy, people are literally, it's just the fact that you're related for him means he's going to come after you no matter what, and you can't escape it. And that's also what 2 means. But with this, I feel like unless they give us something more in Halloween, in the 3rd installment, Halloween Ends, he's going to kind of not have that focus. We're still going to be kind of plucking from this nostalgia as to implying meaning on him.
I mean, it's kind of like they just made him Jason Voorhees, basically, with this one.
It's
like,
just
a lot
like
of
if
the
you're
kills
in
that
his
he
path,
did in this,
he's gonna kill you.
but sometimes if you're in his path, yeah. Because the man just wants to chill at home in this one. It's like the mob's tearing apart a hospital, and he's just like chilling in his bedroom. He's just staring out a window. He's happy.
Yeah, he's just vibing. He got new decor. It was great.
Just
and actually,
vibing. I was thinking when you were talking about that, I wonder if a less ham-fisted, I love that word, kind of theme that they could have gone with would be like, instead of mob mentality, more of a like bystander effect, which I feel like is way more prevalent in that sort of setting of like, oh, we're a sweet, tight-knit little community, and then somebody's screaming next door, and it's like, well, that's none of my business, or somebody else will handle that. Because that was something I feel like happens even in like the original Halloween. This girl screaming her head off in the middle of this well-populated street. It's not like a street like at the end of a wooded road, and nobody comes out to help her. She can't even get somebody to open the door and like peek their head out. So I feel like they could have gone more into that if they wanted to like have some sort of like societal twist on the movie. Or just like, we're not getting involved, that's not any of our business sort of thing.
And I mean, this movie just has, here's the thing, I find this movie very entertaining, but clearly its biggest weakness is the thing that the writers set out to try and do. The most intentional thing that the writers attempted is the thing that falls flat the most. So we talked a little bit about how these movies kind of have like this nostalgia factor and calling back on a couple other things. So I kind of want to go in and do a little bit of a highlight round of a couple different pieces that seem to be being borrowed at this moment, and things that probably shouldn't have been retconned. I'm just gonna say it. Laurie's motivation makes no sense with the Halloween 2 retcon. The fact that she completely believes that Michael Myers would be after her and the lifelong paranoia that she had in the first movie doesn't check out unless she has a reason to think Michael Myers will come back for her specifically, like she would have thought at the end of 2.
But he does come back for her in Halloween 2018.
He does.
That's because she puts him in his path.
Yeah, it was
like he wouldn't have done that unless she specifically got his attention.
Yeah, and the only reason why
and then the doctor drove him to her house.
Yeah, exactly. So the doctor was the main reason for kind of initiating everything, and they talk about that in this movie as if it's kind of like a retcon of like, Laurie, you're not that important.
You think Michael is like,
Jedi
I barely know who this bitch even is. Like, I don't care.
Come on, I tried to kill her like 40 years ago. Give me a break. Jesus.
You think I'm going to remember everybody I try to swing a knife at? Jesus. What, you want me to sign the blade for you?
Like, oh.
That's...
Get over yourself.
Yeah. And, of course, this movie harkens a lot on Halloween 2 and other elements as well.
It even has footage from Halloween 2 in it.
Really?
Yeah, there's the scene where Brackett, the cop from 1 and 2, like, I don't remember off the top of my head if it was the same actor. I don't think it was. But they had him still working as a cop 40 years later. And I'm like, what?
Oh, no, yeah, I know who you're talking about. That was the...
I did like that he brings back his line. He brings back his line, everyone's... Sorry.
There's a scene of him seeing his daughter's dead body.
Yes.
That's from Halloween 2. So I'm like, wait, what parts of that movie are canon? What aren't?
Yeah. That was my whole thing. I had that same moment. But yeah, Alex, you had something to add to that,
I like that he brings back his line when Laurie tells him in the original Halloween, like, oh, I saw this weird guy. And he's like, oh, everyone's entitled to one good scare. I was like, nice. When he brings it back in this movie. I'm like, give him a line. I do also like that they bring so many people back. It feels very, like, a lot of John Carpenter's movies, he used the same actors, a lot of the same crew. So I feel like that adds a little John Carpenter to this series as well, especially in this movie. There's so many more.
Weight and character.
Yeah.
Yeah. And honestly, this movie was probably one of the ones where I felt like the town felt the most alive, and I actually kind of understood Haddonfield a little bit more than just like a random redneck town. This one was portrayed very differently than Haddonfields of the past. It felt like a Chicago liberal suburb.
Very different than the Rob Zombie interpretation.
Oh, yes. Well, speaking of rednecks, there is a very obvious tie to a Halloween 4 subplot here.
Okay, so watch my full stop review of Halloween 4. There's a subplot in Halloween 4 where this group of drunk rednecks, it's kind of cartoony, but the whole movie's cartoony. They find out that Michael's back, and so they get in pickup trucks, pick up shotguns, and then just start driving all over the town looking for him. And the first thing that happens is that they shoot and kill the wrong person. And then barely react. And that was honestly one of my favorite little details because, yeah, that's exactly what would happen if you had a mob on a hunt, especially if all of them are armed in some fashion. So when we saw a plot about a mob, that was immediately where mine and basically anybody who's seen Halloween 4's mind went.
And it does the same exact thing. The wrong person gets killed because of mob mentality and misidentification. However,
except the misidentification made way less sense here.
Oh,
because the dude was in the bushes in the other movie. In this one, like the guy was very clearly.
Well, not only was a dude in the bushes, it was a teenager wearing the Michael Myers mask.
That's Halloween 2.
Oh, that was Halloween 2. Right.
Halloween 4 was just a dude in the bushes. Oh. Halloween 2 is where the cops, instead of shooting the wrong person, they hit the wrong person with a car and blow him up.
Oh, yes.
And they blow an ambulance up, and they blow a cop car up. And there's a lot of stuff that blows up in this franchise.
They're like, that's clearly Michael Myers, and it's a child.
Yep.
It's a kid who was just out trick-or-treating.
Not only that, it was the if you look at the script and read what that character's name was, it was the guy who asked out Laurie in the first one. So she's had a really bad day.
I'm just gonna say it. All these movies from 2 onward are just fucking silly, and to say not so is a crime. And the only other movie that wasn't really silly, which was Halloween 2018, was rather boring. So I think that there is something to say about having these movies kind of being ridiculous, but I think that's just kind of the slasher genre as a whole.
I mean, yeah, like the slasher genre, you can only reinvent the wheel. You can only do that plot so many times before you can justify it. It's like, Jesus Christ, how many times is this guy gonna go on a killing spree? Like, it got to the point with the Friday the 13th franchise, for example, where he went to space, he fought demons in hell. He fought Carrie, except they couldn't get the rights to Carrie, so they just made a random telepathic character. And the best regarded movie in that franchise, Part 6, he's in a grave, he gets struck by lightning, reanimates as a corpse, and the first people he kills after that is this really goofy office party where it's a paintball shoot, and it's just cartoony, but the movie knows that and just plays with it. And like the best Nightmare on Elm Street, after the first movie, Freddy Krueger just became a stand-up comic who killed people sometimes, basically.
Yeah. Here's
You're
the
here
thing.
to be entertained. Like, that's the beginning, middle, and end of it. Like, these kinds of movies, I don't want a theme. I don't want to be preached at. I just want to watch people die, and then me be like, wow, so glad that hasn't happened to me. Or if you're watching Final Fantasy, then you like walk around your house looking at like, oh fuck, like I should probably
Final
fix
Fantasy
that.
just induces anxiety.
It's Destination.
Final
Fantasy is the video
Fantasy.
game.
Shit.
Final Destination.
Final Destination. We are we're getting a little bit too much bleed over from everything else we do in life. I
don't know, because like ultimately this movie just feels like Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 1.
Actually had a similar note.
This movie is like...
It's not wrong.
There's so much that happens in this movie. Like, I don't know what Halloween Ends is going to look like, but I'd be willing to wager that you could skip right from this one to the next one without missing a beat, with the exception of Judy Greer being dead randomly. Yeah. Which, by the way, that was such a bullshit way to end the thing.
So
that was bullshit.
That
annoyed me.
I kind of want to talk about the last scene, actually, because, well, first of all, he becomes immortal, he kills everyone. And
can I rant about the girl who had a fucking open door and then ran back inside the house? Like, Michael's coming down the stairs, she's at the stairwell.
Yes.
And it moves out of the way of an open door and then lets him go.
The people in this movie
her
are
leg's
just stupid.
broken. She can't walk.
Okay, so not walk outside. Don't not walk in the house.
I will say
we might not even be talking about the same person.
I don't think we're talking about the same
granddaughter,
person.
the teen.
Oh yeah,
we're talking about the teen.
At the
we're talking about the same person.
The door was open. She moved away from the open door.
Yeah, I think she just couldn't walk outside. Plus, her mom's trying to lure him outside.
Yeah.
I did think, I was like, oh, he's just gonna go.
You're talking about an earlier thing. Okay.
It's like a minute before the mom.
Okay,
moves.
Alex and I are thinking of when the mom shows up and
no, before the mom shows up, she moves back into the house.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, also just the fact that they went single file into that house and like the dad was like, "No, I go first. You stay here." It's like, dude,
why are you bringing your teenage son in that situation at all?
Yeah, like you go in with the backup.
Well, yeah,
the mom was only
never...
a few minutes away, as we see, anyways.
It doesn't feel super clear why he even goes into this house. Like he makes it seem like he's being such a martyr. It's like, for what?
The goal is to kill him and not die.
Because
also opens the door and it's like
he was too afraid to go into the house in the first movie, so he has to redeem himself here and go into the house in this one.
Also, if Michael's not there, he's just walking into these two guys' house. Like he's just walking.
he doesn't
into
even
their
Okay, but that
house.
would be fun though. That would be a nice little confusion. Okay, I'm backing up. I do want to talk about that last scene. So that you were saying earlier, so that last scene was shot and edited very differently based off of the changes that they made.
That he gets up and takes out the mob. That's the part, that's
Really?
part of the thing that got changed apparently. I don't know what of the Judy Greer stuff did and didn't get changed.
So my thing with the Judy Greer stuff was I'm just coming off of watching Halloween 5. And there were some choices in the editing that made me feel like there was some implication that they were going to go further into the connection between Michael and Laurie. Now, a lot of that has to do with the fact that they were match cutting them in the same spot of the frame as he was murdering her daughter. And the only time that I could think of a similar thing being used in the Halloween franchise is in Halloween 5 with that psychic link between Michael and Jamie. That being said, I don't think it's Thorne, because I think it would be really stupid of them to...
I think the entire fan base would riot if that plot.
Yeah, they would be very upset if the Thorne trilogy came back.
Fans wanted Paul Rudd back because Anthony Michael Hall played that role this time.
Oh, Jesus.
Can you imagine if that was Paul Rudd leading the mob in this one?
I kind of would have loved that.
Yeah.
I kind of would have loved that. But it did feel like they want to go further into having these two 60-year-olds battle it out at the end of this trilogy. Like, it
old people
feels
fighting.
like they want to have it end there. Yeah, it's going to be old people.
If I wanted to watch that, I'd watch C-SPAN.
It's just gonna end with
I feel
one
like I
of them
have to
dying.
end the podcast now.
It's gonna end with
I'm
one
sorry,
of
Alex,
them,
go
if not both of them, dying. It's just.
I think they both die.
Yeah, I would assume they both
No, I
die.
think Michael Myers gets up again. I don't see this being a trilogy. No, I see this turning into a runaway, 6 movies. What are we talking about?
Yeah,
Hollywood's
probably.
not good enough to actually do a trilogy when they say
Halloween
they're gonna do
ends.
a trilogy.
We mean it this time. Not really.
Yeah, exactly.
No, it's going to be Halloween Ends, and then next is going to be Halloween Genesis.
Halloween, the search for more money.
I'm... You know what? You're not wrong. Okay, so I guess here we are at the end of the line. We have had some pretty mixed opinions. So I'm going to say let's go in and do verdicts, because I want to see where everyone actually feels on this thing. Alex, let's start with you.
I enjoyed watching this. I thought it was fun. I thought the beginning and end were better than the middle, but I mean, I still think it's worth watching. It fulfilled expectations. You're an idiot if you go into horror movies expecting a whole lot. I feel like we've established that. Depending, there's certain movies I feel like you can kind of go in expecting a lot, but this certainly not. I think it checks most of the boxes that it needs to. It has some truly brutal kills, and I feel like that's what most people are watching for. Brutal kills with a little bit of dialogue in between. And it does that. So, how much can I complain? I think we kind of made this... We had this thought with the 2018 that it was, a little bit boring because they were setting so much exposition up, and that this movie was going to be more action-packed. And I think we were right in thinking that way, and that's the direction the movie went in. Yeah, it's pretty rough to start off a movie with killing a bunch of firefighters. Brutal. Those were actual firefighters, too.
Whoa, they got an actual fire department in for the murdering?
Yeah, some of the firefighters are played by, actual... I think some Air Force or airfield fire department stood in for the firefighters.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool.
That was an awesome sequence as well. All right, Matt.
Oh, the like saw. He turns
Oh
it
my
back
God.
on the guy. Oh, see, like we could probably have a whole other thing about the specific kills because they're great, they're exciting. So
They're
you know
so
what?
good. They're so good.
Just watch it.
I still
Watch
think-
the first one. Watch this one. Get a little drunk. Smoke a little whatever. Hopefully
It's
not
illegal where
crack.
you live.
And have a fun time.
Not crack.
Not crack.
Meth's okay, but crack, no. And don't actually smoke meth. That's we will be banned.
Sounds
Okay, Matt.
terrible.
So I think my favorite kill in this movie was the one where Michael opens the car door and it just so happens to hit the doctor lady with the gun, and she just accidentally shoots herself because it was something straight out of Tucker and Dale versus Evil.
Yes.
That kill, and it was
Yes.
just like, it almost looked like Michael had to pause, like, did that just happen? Did that just happen? So the kills
That
in
was
this movie-
actually a blooper, guys. That wasn't supposed to happen. The actress is dead.
Yeah, it felt like a
Um,
little bonus, like he had reached his kill count that he needed to hit, and so they were like, bonus, and it just killed her off. And he was like, oh, yay, a little
streak.
treat for me.
I've
I've been saving this for a rainy day, but I think I deserve it after the night I've had. I've kind of always been of the opinion that any follow-ups to Halloween after the first and maybe the second were kind of unnecessary. Part of why I still revisit those first two movies pretty much every year is that, no, the first one more than the second, but the second one still has this where there's an atmosphere, there's kind of a tension that just doesn't really exist in any of the other movies. This one's more action, more slashy, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
But in the original two, it's just a lot of long takes, a lot of like deep contrast. So there's like really, really dark colors where he's just kind of blending in. So there's always some great shots of the mask just kind of phasing out of nowhere as if he's a ghost. A lot of POV shots. Like there's a great sequence near the beginning of Halloween 2 where he sneaks into someone's house. You see this almost exclusively from his POV, steals a knife and just walks out of the kitchen, and you're just like, he didn't murder those people. Was he going to? Is he going to come back? And so it just kind of keeps you guessing, and so it helps kind of like build the tension.
Yeah.
And I don't think many of these recent movies have that. I gave Halloween 4 a good review, and the reason for that is that Halloween 4 had a completely different identity, had a completely different thing it was trying to set out to accomplish. And, you know, within the bounds of the slasher genre, which Alex is completely right. If you're going into the slasher genre expecting high art, you're not going to have a good time. I'm kind of lukewarm on this like new trilogy. I was really excited when I heard who was involved, because I was very curious, because people who are mainly known for being comedic jumping into horror, it's a bit of a curiosity.
Yeah.
Because to do comedy right and to be good at comedy, you have to do one of two things. You have to just be naturally funny in the improv way, which, to be fair, in the early 2000s, that's what a lot of comedies were.
Yeah.
Or you have to be very, 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 very precise with your writing and with your delivery and your timing. And so good comedians have to be really fucking smart, is what I'm saying. So I wanted, and to make a good horror movie, you have to have that same kind of savvy.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of excited for that. And I think these two new movies, and especially this one, I think they get... If you're going in it for gore, yeah, watch it. But I just think this one's kind of unnecessary, because we're going to get to a third one that, with the exception of some of the characters who were alive and at the end of 2018 will now be dead by the start of the next one, there's not really a whole lot that happens.
Yeah.
It's nice to see Haddonfield with a lot of character, even if there's maybe about 30 collective brain cells between all of them.
That's
yeah,
being
I was
generous.
throwing my notebook at the wall, angry at how stupid some of these characters were and how stupid some of the decision making was. Because they even make a point to say, strength in numbers, stay armed, never go off alone. And guess what the fuck they all start doing, right?
Yeah.
And so is it cheating if I go to my full stop rating system and give this one a yellow light?
No, I don't think it's cheating.
Because it does like just enough right from just like the primal slasher stuff with the kills and just the sheer brutality and just like kind of mindless action of it, to where it's like, yeah, it is entertaining, but there's other entertaining slasher movies I would rather watch over this one.
Yeah. So for me, I found this one endlessly more entertaining than the first installment in this franchise. I know that the first installment was more grounded, and that my opinion on that is not necessarily the popular one. But my whole thing with this is I just found the 2018 movie extremely underwhelming and kind of silly and hard to follow most of the time. And then going into this one, I had my expectations drastically low. Drastically low. And to have it open up and entertain me thoroughly until we reach the second act. And as we've all stated, the second act, everything about the hospital and the mob mentality stuff was awful. And then the third act, I genuinely enjoyed. Because even though it's stupid power creep, I was not going into this expecting anything less. I was entirely like, oh, so Michael Myers survived the burning house by actually being smart. That's interesting. Okay, they didn't make him unkillable yet. And then there's a bunch of moments going forward where you can see Michael Myers like actively avoiding basically death wounds, which is kind of the normal thing that's happened in this franchise. Well, excuse me, not this franchise, within this reboot series. And then to have at the end that moment of like, nah, he's still that unkillable bitch. And he's going to wreck everyone just like he did those muscular firefighters. That was cathartic. So for me, if you're going into a slasher movie and you're going into a fucking Halloween reboot, you should know your expectations are on the floor. So with that in mind, using that full stop system, I would give this a green light. I honestly thought that this was endlessly entertaining. It was so stupid. I was not coming here for high art, guys. I was coming here for some murders and some stupid people, and it fucking delivered. Could I have done without the mob mentality thing that was just but poorly executed? Absolutely. But overall, like, I enjoyed this. I would watch this again. I usually do not say that about slasher movies. I would watch this again.
I also want to see how my opinion on this changes after the third one comes out. Because I want to see how it ties together as like a 3-act story. Because this whole thing was pitched as a 3-piece story.
Yeah. And I'll still say, my opinion on 2018 hasn't changed. Because honestly, I feel like you might be able to not watch 2018 and still enjoy this. You might have some questions, but I feel like it fills in the gaps pretty well.
There is definitely, I'm excited to see the third one because it was pretty easy to see where this movie was going to be going, which I don't think is a bad thing, but you just knew like he's going to the town and going to be killing a bunch of people. By the way that the original or the 2018 one ended. So very interested to see like what the third one is all about.
Yeah, that's the thing I'm most fascinated with right now.
I think I saw this theory on the internet somewhere, but Michael and Laurie take each other out, and then the same link that took Jamie at the end of 4 takes the granddaughter. How cool would that be if they brought that back? Interesting.
I would be. We'll see. I'm totally vibing with what's happening right now, though, with this franchise, and I guess we'll have to do a special episode when the sequel of this comes out. So
yep, next October.
Stick around until
full year.
Yeah,
from now.
Be here next October. We've said it here, although we will likely be doing an edition a continuation of our normal thing, and there will be a new horror. There will be a new horror movie franchise that we are going to be looking at doing 4 episodes of for the month of October next year. So please come by. And as always, like, comment, and subscribe. Let us know what you thought of these movies, our opinions. If you think that Michael Myers actually represents something, or is he just mindless boogeyman? And I think that's about it. Oh, yes, also come by next week. We're doing a live stream. It's going to be a lot of fun. And I think that's all. All right, everybody. We will see you in the next one. And bye-bye.
Bye.
This episode of The Return of the Movie was produced by Matt Kime with music and editing by Benjamin Collins. The Return of the Movie is produced by ABBC Productions and released as part of the Scope Network. You can find more of our content and the rest of our podcast at youtube.com/Scope Productions.